Retro Retardians. Thanks for coming back and watching another review. This time we're going to be reviewing a classic Sega CD game. And this game is something that, man, I think you're going to love it. It's filled with polygon fury from every direction. It's going to be hitting you left, it's going to be hitting you from the right, it's going to be hitting you from the top, it's going to be hitting from you from the bottom, from the front, from the back, whatever. Here it is, Silpheed on Sega CD. Look at this. Look at these cases, the way they made these things. I mean, this is no joke. And Silpheed is a pretty excellent game. It's an awesome shooter. So let's go ahead and check this out. And I hope you enjoy the footage. This is captured from RGB through a FrameMeister Mini. So that made sense to you. Awesome. If not, I'm sorry. I'll explain that later in another video. But this is an awesome example of the video quality and the excellent sound quality of Sega Genesis. So let's check it out.
Silpheed on the Sega CD was released in 1993 by Game Arts and featured full motion video backgrounds with polygon graphics overlaid on top of that. And the effect is sometimes really convincing, and other times it's not so great. But all in all, this is a great shooter. It has 12 levels, and they're all varied and different, which is very cool. You know, this game actually was originally made in 1986, and yes, it looked a lot different, but the 1986 versions were on a few different platforms and eventually actually came to PC thanks to Sierra Online. Silpheed on the Sega CD is considered by most people to be a follow-up or sequel to Silpheed from 1986. However, this is debatable, and some people cite things like very similar enemies, including the final boss, some storyline elements, you know, but personally I consider it to be really a sequel. And maybe a flip side comparison would be something like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 by Sam Raimi, where Evil Dead is clearly intended to be the sequel because the number 2's there. For a lot of viewers, it feels like a remake of Evil Dead because, you know, the way the cabin element is there and Bruce Campbell's character Ash, and so all of that really does kind of feel like a remake even though it's branded as a sequel. Stage 1 has you launched right into the action, and you can see the backdrop is a full motion video planet that's spinning on its core, on its axis, and you can see the cool blue hue of the ozone layer, which is kind of a cool effect, but none of that is rendered in the game right now. It's all, you know, been recorded on a video, and it's just being played in the background while the ships and all the, you know, enemy stuff that's happening is all overlaid on top of that. So that's the effect of the game. And sometimes it's more convincing than others, which is, you know, you'll see from the video here. My shield is on the upper right side. I have 6 hit points, which is very cool. You know, you definitely have enough to try and make it through the game. Right there, I got 1 repair. You know, these other bonus upgrades here, that's some points, and there's another repair. So I'm able to kind of, you know, get my shield to come up throughout the game, which is very cool. You don't upgrade your weapons as you're playing in each level. Instead, you get that at the end of each level. You're able to choose different kind of weapon patterns, and the one that you're looking at now is just a straight shot one, which I really like. The background there, you can see the ships are exploding in polygon fury there. Well, that's why when this game came out, some people thought that it was all being rendered at once, but that was actually all done previously as a full motion video. So it just is a very cool effect though when done right. This is the weapon select screen that you get every single time you beat a level, and you're able to upgrade and switch out which kind of beams is what they call them, but it's kind of what your cannons are doing on the left and the right side. So the left side, I've gone with the forward beam. The right side, I've been able to now use the wide beam, which is cool because you can actually shoot kind of these shots off to the right side of your ship. But honestly, I just like the 2 forward beams. Those are kind of the best ones. The option down there is what your special is, and you actually get those upgraded too. You have 4 different ones that you get as you progress through the game. Stage 2 has you flying through a crazy asteroid field, and these giant boulders are flying at you, and you gotta avoid them, so you can't fly on that side of the screen, otherwise you'll get hit, which I do quite a few times. And after a while, you realize that this is really more about pattern memorization. You know, but generally, you can see my shot on the right there too. It's called the wide shot, and you can see how useless that really is. I mean, there's a couple levels where it's handy, but I think it's kind of a waste of a good slot of a weapon. It actually reminds me of like a sprinkler kind of flying off to the right there. So, I don't know. Anyway, there's some more upgrades you can see I'm getting, which is fortunate because I just ran into that huge asteroid. Oh, and I hit another asteroid there too, so not doing so good. But here I am coming into my first boss battle. You can see there it is, and it's very menacing, you know, very menacing. It's actually, this was not a very difficult boss, and most of the bosses are very similar to this type of a battle. One thing I like about this game, though, is when you're dying, it really feels intense. Like when it's saying no shield here, you know, I mean, I'm starting to actually sweat a little bit there, which is very cool. This is one of my favorite levels of the game. I just love these huge ships that you're kind of flying around, and because the FMV, I don't know, the quality is good, but it doesn't look like way better than the gameplay. I don't know, visually I just think it's pretty convincing as you're flying through these ships and stuff. I also kind of like the colors of them. The red and the gray I think is a good combo. So here I am also getting damaged. My shield's pretty low. This part is pretty bad. No shield. Those are kind of cool magnet enemies that kind of pop up there. So you'll see I'm trying to get these shields. I'm not really doing that good. I got 2 more repairs. Doing my best. That destroy thing kills everything on the screen, which is very cool. And there we go, some more rotating background. But really, it does add that sense that you're flying over some big ships. So look at that, engine failure. Man, I mean, my ship up on the upper right's got flames coming out of the jets. So things are looking pretty bad here. A bit later on in the level, you can see I'm struggling to stay alive here through this awesome trench scene, which is reminiscent of Star Wars or something. So this is that part where I'm telling you, you just kind of start sweating. It's engine failure. I mean, look at my ship, it's just totally dying. Weapon failure, shield failure, and then finally the inevitable big red screen.
Game over.
Get that awesome game over sound cut. Stage 4 is one of the most convincing 3D looking levels where the backdrops seem to really blend in with the foreground. And this is a great example. I mean, it just feels really claustrophobic, and the way that things are kind of shifting around, I really dig that. So this is one of my favorite levels as well. I mean, there's definitely quite a few levels that I enjoy, but this one is so memorable. And I remember when I was a kid playing this, just thinking like, what is going on? So it's very authentic feeling. It feels very 3D, and I just have always loved this level. Things continue to intensify on this level as you have to avoid these columns as you fly through these corridors. And look at how these levels start to shift and change into new designs. I mean, very cool. It's like you're flying on the back of a giant transformer. And this scene right there, that just blew my mind when I was a kid. It made me tell my friends with Mode 7 and Super Nintendos, I would just say, hey, look, man, you want to see a 3D game? You want to see something impressive? Come check out Silpheed on my Sega CD. Once they saw this, they were like, whoa, I can't believe it. But then they'd show me Star Fox and we'd get into a big argument and whatever. One thing I would criticize with Silpheed is that the boss battles are just a little on the generic side. This is a mini boss that pops up, but he's basically from earlier in the game. And it's just kind of generic. It's not that impressive. It's not that impressive when you're playing it. Considering how large some of the levels feel, the bosses tend to feel kind of small. The exception is the final boss, which I'll show later. Whenever you do approach a boss, you're given this warning, which is kind of cool. And this boss in particular is kind of cool looking. It looks like a Decepticon or something. At least its color palette seems to be that color. I like these bombs that it's launching out. I mean, it's definitely not horrid, you know. And meanwhile, you've got kind of a Jupiter-looking planet spinning on its axis back there, which is cool. You know, the shots that I'm using here are called the phalanx beams, and it's kind of like a spread gun, sort of. And that's the second best, in my opinion, as far as the firepower is concerned. One thing you'll notice also is that the cutscenes in this game are pretty appropriate, and there's quite a few of them. You know, I don't think it's anything that's pushing the Sega CD to its limits by any means, but they fit in well with the game design and the artistic style, and you know, definitely create a sort of sci-fi atmosphere. And I definitely dig the cutscenes in this game. I mean, just the way that ship's flying into bay there, it's pretty cool. Not bad at all. The weapon select screen is filling out nicely. You can see that on the right side I've got a new weapon over there, which is actually auto-aiming, and that's pretty cool, but I just still like the straight shot or the phallic beam, and then the options are increasing too, so it's nice to see that there's some customizable weaponry that you get. The music in Silpheed is really good, however, the song on stage 7 is epic. So check this out and hopefully enjoy this as much as I did, but I feel it perfectly matches the intensity and the level design. Yeah, that song just pretty much blows my mind. So Silpheed's a great game, and I feel like what could have been better about it, personally, I feel like a lot of the firepower is lacking compared to other shooters. It just doesn't feel as satisfying when you're blowing stuff up, and you just don't feel like you have this sense of like you're piloting an awesome vessel with an amazing arsenal. You know, you just kind of have these wimpy little light balls that are shooting out of your ship. So that's, to me, something that's a little bit lacking. Generally, I like the level design in Silpheed, and the levels that kind of match the artistic design of the ships, where it's kind of like a polygon background, those are the ones that I prefer. The ones like this, where you're flying over some kind of terrain like this moon, I feel really cheap in the effect, and to me, it kind of just looks like I'm playing on top of a movie. Now, alas, we're talking about the Sega CD, which really was plagued with many full-motion video games. And you either love it or you hate it. You know, in my opinion, most of the games I enjoy, but when you mix it with this kind of arcade style, it can have a negative effect. Like, this level is good and bad. You know, the good side is that the color palette really breaks up the monotony of outer space. The bad is that it's never been so obvious that you're flying on top of a pre-rendered scene. And so, you know, the sparkling water and the mountain ranges and the blue sky, that's very appealing, but it's just it doesn't look very good. It's dated looking, it's running in a slow frame rate, you know, and actually 1 year later, Bullfrog released a game on the PC and MS-DOS called Magic Carpet. And that game actually looks very similar to this level in particular, with the exception that the mountains would actually morph in front of you and do something called terraforming, where the levels would kind of change and you had the ability to move mountains and move, you know, the terrain around. And if that kind of technology was somehow implemented in this game, I think this level would be absolutely convincing and very, very cool. But instead, we're dealing with a static background. So one other note is that Magic Carpet did come out on Sega Saturn and PlayStation later on, so if you're looking for a game that's pretty fun and pretty technically impressive at the time, check that out. So even with all that said, Silpheed does one thing right, and that's fun. This game is a blast to play, and it's a great addition to your collection. it really captures the vibe of the old school shooters very, very well. The cutscenes perfectly match the artistic style of the time, and I just feel like the only thing that it really does poorly is sometimes it's overambitious, and those 3D rendered scenes that are kind of playing in the background, it makes it fall a little flat. The only other thing is that the boss battles are generally pretty weak. Here's the final boss, and it's awesome. If they would have developed the other bosses to be similar to this, it would have been great, and it would have been more akin to like Star Fox. But all in all, it's a great game.
So there you go. What can I say? The game's awesome. It's filled with crazy polygons, awesome soundtracks. They swear in the game. What the? Who knew? Who knew you could do that back in 1993 or whenever this thing was released? Who knew? So, now it's time to give it an award. What do you think? Did it deserve a good award? I'd say so. I think it gets a good one. So we're going to go with something that predates this game by 10 years. And that's a Jawa from Return of the Jedi. Very fitting character. They're funny, they're sharp, they're rendered in 3D. What else could you ask for? Similarities just keep going. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please click like and subscribe. I'll see you next time when we review another awesome game. And don't forget, there's lots of other playthrough games on this channel too. So if you're looking for something to watch, check that out, because that's some crazy crap right there. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time.
We'll forget you something. Stretch out with your feelings.